I'm Owen Fitz. Welcome to the Fitstop podcast with BYD Limerick and Lions Motor Group and the Yang Wang U8 and U9. You got to check them out. Brand new cars. There's a brand new sports car. It is absolutely beautiful. Wait till you see what this electric car can do. Head over to BYD for more. We're taking a look back at the Hungarian Grand Prix of 2024. Lewis Hamilton broke records in the UK, the British Grand Prix, by winning his 9th British Grand Prix. If he was to win this weekend in Hungary, it would have been his 9th Hungarian Grand Prix. That's how great Lewis Hamilton has been at some of the tracks, but it wasn't a win for him, and it was a brand new winner, and we have a 7th winner in Formula 1 for 2024. It's McLaren, and it's a first win for Oscar Piastri. Welcome to the Fitstop podcast with BYD, Limerick and Lions Motor Group. We take a look back at the Hungarian Grand Prix. We have a new winner in Formula 1 2024. It's Australian Oscar Piastri, and wow, another new winner in Formula 1. Lando Norris will be disappointed with second, and back on the podium again is Sir Lewis Hamilton in third place after his win at the Grand Prix before, at the British Grand Prix. And this season is just turning in to be absolutely crazy and one of the best seasons we've seen in a long time. The last time we had this amount of winners at the first half of the season, I'd say you'd have to go back to when Maldonado won back in 2012, that season. Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso, and somehow nobody knows how that Red Bull car in Brazil 2012, if you haven't watched Formula 1 back then, go back and see. Vettel crashed at the start, got hit twice, and still managed to come back and finish in the points and win the 2012 championship. How Alonso didn't win that day, it's kind of like Massa in 08 against Lewis Hamilton. It just wasn't meant to be. But we've Oscar Piastri at the top step. And before we get into the race, let's look at some news that's breaking in Formula 1 today. It seems from next year, Renault engines will be no more, and that Alpine are moving to Mercedes, and they definitely want it for 2026. They're pushing to get it in the car for 2025. Now, we know Alpine have been struggling, and we know over the last few years Renault have been struggling since they won the 4 championships back-to-back after 2012 with Red Bull. And it's just an engine that hasn't been developed, and an engine that's not consistent, and just there seems to be no clear future with Renault when it comes into Formula 1. And this has been going on a long time now over the last few years with the Renault brand and then rebranding as Alpine. So it seems that they're going to be taking the option of Mercedes engines, and maybe that's a better way for the company to see themselves fighting at the front, because we can see what McLaren are doing with Mercedes engines. It doesn't mean they can't be competing with Mercedes. So maybe a new future and a new outlook maybe that is needed for the Enstone team, that it's not working. And of course they got Flavio Briatore in there as well as an advisor, so maybe he was kind of saying, lads, you need to scrap this engine, the Renault engine, and it's millions, it's hundreds of millions to be put into the new regulations. And Renault are probably looking, and the Renault board are probably going, no, we don't want to spend this money. And the problem is, if they didn't want to spend the money, they'd probably sell the team, and we don't want to see Renault fall out of Formula 1 again. But technically, in a sense, they'll stick with the Alpine brand, but it looks like they're moving to Mercedes, possibly for next year or more 2026. I think it might upset the car to try and develop a car around the Mercedes engine for 2025, but another disappointing weekend for Alpine. Formula 1 points for the new season in 2026. They will not be going down to 12th place. There was talk about the top 12 drivers getting points. That has been scrapped. We stick with the top 10. Back in my day watching Formula 1, it used to be 1st to 6th, so you have to fight even harder back in the old Jordan days just to get yourself a point. But yeah, it's not going to change for the new regulations. And in 2026 we're going to have 9 days of testing, because it's a new formula, because it's new engines, because it's new technology. They're going to give them 6 extra days, 6 extra hours of testing in Formula 1. So they're going to have 9 opportunities to test the new cars. And I think well done to the FIA for bringing that one in. That was probably definitely something that needed to come in. What a win this weekend for Oscar Piastri. What a win for McLaren, as 2012 was the last time, Monza in 2021 was the last time that they had a 1-2. So it's crazy to think that Oscar Piastri is now up there with Lando Norris. Lando Norris throwing his toys out of the pram, not happy with second place after securing pole position, and Lewis Hamilton in third. And we were talking the last few weeks about McLaren, and kind of saying that McLaren were having issues when it came to strategy, and they should have won the British Grand Prix, they should have won in Austria as well. And we've kind of been asking from the strategy team to be a bit better and to make better decisions. They still managed to get a 1-2 this weekend, but managed to make it so awkward for Piastri, so awkward for Lando Norris, and they put themselves into a position that they didn't need to be in. So Lando Norris gets pole position. Lando Norris has another bad start. Got a good start off the line, but then Piastri got a second phase of it, got on better. While squeezing each other out, Lando lost out to his teammate, and that allowed Max Verstappen to go on the outside. Max Verstappen ran wide and then came out in front of Lando Norris, and there was a fight going on for a while of should he give the place back. McLaren were thinking he should give the place back. It was under investigation from the FIA, and Max Verstappen's engineer just came on and said, look, rather than waiting, let's just give the place back rather than get a penalty. Max Verstappen was not happy. Max felt that he went around the outside and he was pushed. Lando Norris feels that Max just went around the outside and ultimately couldn't make the corner. So that was the first bit of the race that, you know, we had any bit of excitement. And the race kind of died down a small bit, and Piastri was leading. And then it came to the round of pit stops. And then it became clear that they wanted to cover off Lewis Hamilton. The undercut, where you pit before someone on fresher tyres, you get to jump on them then on their pit stop. It seemed that McLaren worried about their 1-2, and they were worried about Lewis Hamilton. So they decided to pit their second driver, Lando Norris, first. That meant Piastri came out in second. Only at the British Grand Prix did Piastri get his strategy ruined because of Lando Norris. Piastri was told, it's okay, don't worry about it, do your race and we'll sort it out. McLaren put themselves in an awful position where they put Lando Norris, who's second in the Drivers' Championship, who now is only 75, 76 points off Max Verstappen. He clearly did not want to give the race lead back to his teammate. And I think it's kind of embarrassing from McLaren, the way they had to talk to him on the radio and the way they had to tell him to give the place back. It's something they should have discussed, and I'm sure they would have discussed, you know, if we're 1 and 2 after the first lap, whoever's leading gets the race win. But they didn't discuss what would happen if they had to protect an undercut. And it's just that little bit of inexperience from McLaren that, you know, the experience in the past McLaren used to be there. Probably new people in the team and not used to fighting at the front. They need to make those decisions a lot quicker. They should have swapped their drivers a lot quicker. Piastri did have one instance where he kind of went off and threw stones, didn't he, all over the circuit. I'm surprised there wasn't a virtual safety car for that one to clean out the track, and no safety car this weekend in the race again, which is absolutely surprising. Normally we get one in Hungary, and how we didn't get one at the British Grand Prix is absolutely bizarre. But McLaren put themselves into that situation where they don't need to be there. But then again, if it comes down to the championship and Lando Norris loses out by a few points, he'll say, look, I'm your lead driver, I've been leading the team for the last few years, I've been here the longest, Piastri's new, why didn't I get the win? But I think fair is fair, and as they said, if you want to win the championship, you need your teammate. And when it does come to fighting for the championship, if they do, I'm sure Piastri would be willing to help his teammate Lando Norris. So pity for McLaren to put themselves in such a situation, and I kind of felt that it took away from his win, and Piastri didn't seem as happy. But then again, Piastri's so laid back, isn't he? Like, most drivers cry, they woohoo, they talk about being a dream. He was just like, yeah, guys and girls, thanks a million, that was great. Maybe he's just got that laid back Australian personality, but he didn't seem too excited or too carried away. Maybe it was because of the shenanigans, maybe it was a bit nervy for him. But yeah, amazing, he's after getting himself his first Formula 1 Grand Prix. And interesting enough, that's a circuit where he struggled last year, and I remember on my podcast talking about how he couldn't get the tyres working and he needed more experience. He had an awful Grand Prix there last year, dropping off, where he was in a good position to fight for the podium. So it'll show you the difference a year makes. He says they still have a lot to do. But McLaren were on the pace this weekend. They had upgrades, unlike Red Bull, so they'll be delighted with a 1-2, but making it very, very awkward for themselves. Lewis Hamilton in third position. They'll be hoping for a colder Grand Prix, I think, in Belgium. The temperatures really didn't suit Mercedes this weekend. They just weren't really getting it right in practice, and struggled across the weekend. Not getting George Russell out of Q1 was an absolute disgrace for Mercedes and kind of screwed their weekend. But Lewis Hamilton will be happy with third. I think a weekend where they struggled, still ahead of Ferrari and still ahead of Red Bull, which we will get into as well. Charles Leclerc with fourth. Would he be happy with fourth? Probably better than his last few races, but Ferrari just still off the pace. We're still not seeing true pace from Ferrari. They're slower than Red Bull, they're slower than Mercedes. They're kind of just picking up the pieces at the moment. So still disappointing for Ferrari. Even with upgrades, they're not fighting at the front. But you know what? It's Ferrari. They'll keep pushing and they'll keep on fighting as well. Max Verstappen in fifth. What an awful weekend for Max Verstappen. And what an awful race for Max Verstappen. And Max Verstappen was really, really moody. you know, we've heard him giving his race engineer some stick on the radio, but this weekend he was really bad, really complaining, didn't like the strategy that they put him on. Yes, they got it wrong. But sometimes teams get it wrong. He was so aggressive. He was so angry. And then he had the collision with Lewis Hamilton. Look, Max was at fault for that one. Lewis didn't move the steering wheel. Max just kind of threw it into turn one and just made contact with Lewis. He was just having a bad weekend. And the fact that his race engineer had to tell him that the radio messages were childish. And there's a few exchanges as well where he just clearly wasn't happy about how Max Verstappen is talking to people. And Max Verstappen came out in the interviews afterwards and says, well, everybody can just F off. I'll talk how I talk, I'll do what I do. And look, that's what I think a lot of us love about Max Verstappen, but what people hate as well is I love that passion. I like that passion about him. He doesn't care what you think. Yuki Tsunoda's probably the same on the radio as well. And, you know, Max just had a messy race, and he's had a messy few races. It seems that the pressure is getting to him and Red Bull, and a lot of people now are speaking, oh, is he going to leave Red Bull? Is the relationship broken? Is he really going to Mercedes? Is Toto going to take him as an option for 25, 26? But they'll be looking to bounce back in Belgium, and they'll be looking forward, I think, to the summer break in Red Bull and to kind of recalibrate and see where they're going with the car. But remember, they had no upgrades on the car this weekend, and they weren't too far off the pace, with Max starting in third position, getting the second, which he had to give back. But just a disappointing weekend for him, and another weekend where he didn't really need to crash into Lewis Hamilton again. Those two love to crash into each other. We had sixth place for Carlos Sainz. He was kind of on the pace a bit in qualifying and practice, but in the race, only sixth place for him. Sergio Perez will be happy with seventh, and I have to say that was a really good drive from Perez, despite starting at the very back. And what a disappointing start to qualifying. He looked well in practice, and it seemed a weekend where he needed to bounce back, because ever since he signed a new contract with Red Bull, he hasn't been on the pace. Christian Horner invited him to his house. They sat down, had a cup of tea and gone, right, okay, where can we make this work for you, Sergio? We need you back. We need you up there with Max Verstappen. And what did he do? He binned it in Q1. Awful damage to the car. Really hard hit. You know what? A bit unlucky, to be honest, probably with the setup and being a bit damp on the track, and I think George Russell had kind of had a spin before as well. Very unlucky from Sergio Perez, but he'll take confidence from finishing seventh. The car is not where it needs to be, but he needs to be up there a bit more, and the weekends where Max Verstappen's struggling, he needs to be thereabouts, or beating him, or picking up the win. You know, he's the only driver outside of his teammate Red Bull, and obviously Ferrari and McLaren and Mercedes. He hasn't won a race, and I think that'll be on the back of his head going, all these guys have won a race, I want to be the 8th different winner in Formula 1 2024. So let's see how he gets on in Belgium. But it's a Grand Prix that he doesn't do very well in. The Hungarian Grand Prix hasn't been very good to Sergio Perez. Mercedes, George Russell, 8th place, look, probably the best he could do. Same with Sergio after kind of a messy weekend and exiting qualifying quite early. Yuki Tsunoda will be happy with 9th. He destroyed his car in Q2, wasn't it, or Q3, yeah, bring out the red flag, so he'll be happy to finish in the points. Lance Stroll finished 10th. Talk about teammates not giving the place back. Alonso was asked to let him through. They hardly said Stroll is faster than you, did they? So a disappointing weekend for Aston Martin, only getting 1 point. But Lance Stroll has been outpacing and outracing Fernando Alonso in the last few races. He's kind of really picked it up, or he's getting a better understanding of the car, but the car's not great. Alonso just doesn't seem to be, excuse the pun, at the races, does he? He seems to be quite happy, but we don't seem to be seeing anything special from him, and they had great moments in podiums last year, just the car isn't there at the moment. So disappointing times, and upgrades with the floor didn't help during the year, so it's not looking great for Aston Martin. But look, more points, they've scored points in the last few Grand Prix, so well done to Lance Stroll in 10th, Fernando Alonso in 11th. Daniel Ricciardo not happy with his strategy. Listen back to the interviews, Daniel Ricciardo feels that he was screwed over with his strategy. Not the only driver this weekend to be absolutely disappointed. He was going to be looking for good points this weekend. 13th for Haas, no points this weekend for Nico Hülkenberg. Alexander Albon in 14th for Williams. Disappointing weekend for Williams. Kevin Magnussen in 15th. Bottas in 16th. Logan Sargent in 17th as well. Alpine, we just spoke about them changing to Mercedes engines. They'll be looking for something different with their car. After kind of a good few races, they've gone kind of messy again the last while, haven't they? 18th, 19th for Zhou Guanyu, and did not finish. It's the Alpine of Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly not having a good run of Grand Prix. He's retired in the last 2 Grand Prix. So a great win for Piastri. Lando Norris not happy with second. Lewis Hamilton will be okay with third. Under pressure 100% definitely is Red Bull with Max Verstappen and also with Sergio Perez as well. And we've one more race. Normally the Grand Prix ends this time of the year and we get the summer break, but there's one more race, the Belgium Grand Prix this weekend. Who knows what's going to happen at the Belgium Grand Prix? I actually can't call it, and that's what I love about Formula 1 2024. Normally we were going into races and it was like, yeah, Max Verstappen's going to win by 30 seconds. We don't know. Historically, it is a good Grand Prix for Red Bull, but McLaren are doing so good. Norris just isn't happy. He's cranky the whole time. Even out of the car in the cool down room, he threw the helmet, or he's threw his hat on the ground putting up his helmet. Lewis said, oh wow, you guys are quick. And he kind of snapped at Lewis and kind of went, yeah, well, you had the fast car for 6 years. And I don't think Lewis was kind of saying, you know, it's because of that. I think he was kind of complimenting him, going, I couldn't keep up with you. So Lando Norris is feeling the pressure, and I wonder, did Lando Norris think while driving around, I need to do a Sebastian Vettel on it, multi-21, I need to kind of go, yeah, but I inherited the lead because of ye, my team. I'm fighting for the championship. I say he probably thought, going, what would the PR be like if he had done this? If he had gone, I don't care about Oscar, I want to win the Grand Prix, I'm leading the team, I'm second in the Drivers' Championship. You know, he's only 75, 76 points behind now. Will they be looking at that at some stage and gone, this is what we should have done? But we've seen Mercedes do it with Valtteri Bottas before, and probably I think in Hungary as well, with Lewis Hamilton. Fair is fair, and you got to play the teammate game. But then as soon as it suits the team, the likes of Piastri, they'll do anything to make sure Lando wins if he's in a fight for the championship. We have a fight for the championship. One DNF, bad race for Max Verstappen, a win for Lando Norris. You never know. Some grid penalties for Max Verstappen as well for engines. You just don't know what's going to happen. This is such an exciting season, and I just love that we're having fun in a season where at the start we were going, this is going to be boring, Max is going to run away with it. No, McLaren are back, and how great is it to see McLaren at the front. McLaren need to win now, and they need to win if they can in 2025, because we don't know what's going to happen with the new regulations in 2026. Anyone could win it. Williams could be up there, Alpine could be up there, it doesn't matter. Sauber could be winning, or win their Audi. Like, anyone could get a good hold on the new rules, even Ferrari for 2026. So an exciting Grand Prix again this weekend. Formula 1 is still fun to watch. We head to the historic race of Belgium and Spa-Francorchamps and Eau Rouge, and it's just an absolute beautiful track. I do miss the old bus stop chicane. If you want to see a crazy classic race, if you're kind of new to Formula 1, Jordan, the Irish Formula 1 team with Eddie Jordan, go back to their first Grand Prix win, a 1-2 in 1998, where David Coulthard decided to take out the whole field. It's an absolute classic race with a master smash at the start, like one of the biggest crashes we've ever seen at the start of Formula 1. We have a fight on for the championship. One more race before we head to the summer break. Thank you so much for listening to Fitstop Podcast. Thank you to BYD Limerick and Lions Motor Group. And I'll be back next week to talk about the Belgium Grand Prix.